Hey guys, it's Victoria, and you are in for a super special treat today because my mom's here. Say hello, Mom.
Hi.
It's my mom, Sherry. I did a Facebook Live this morning on my personal page celebrating that it's my mom's birthday today. It's her 70th birthday. And I thought, you know what? You guys need to hear about my mom and all her wisdom. So although I was celebrating it on my personal page, I really wanted to talk to you, and I'm gonna get teary. Here we go again.
Uh-oh.
Just because I've learned so much from my mom over the years about life, about love, about empathy, compassion, about resiliency, and I need to ask her a few questions so that she can share some of that wisdom and impart it to you guys, my audience, because I think it's really important to share what we've both learned as we've gotten older, as women, as wives, as mothers, as whatever life throws at us, because we've been through some crap, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at the same time, she's also taught me how to take life not too seriously, and although we seem really serious here, we can get into some pretty hoot-hollering,
Big giggles.
that's for sure.
Big giggles.
Okay, so thank you, Mom, for doing this. I know she was a little bit worried about it, but I said, don't worry, this isn't a live. We'll just go with the flow, and if we don't like it, we won't go on. I want to ask, so I've learned a lot from you. What's one thing that you took away from Grandma?
Grandma Myers?
No, your
Oh,
mom.
my mom.
Yeah, so what was the one big lesson or piece of advice that Grandma Lamont gave you that stuck with you?
That no matter what you go through, you still love each other. I think that was one of the biggest things, because when I was a child growing up, it was hard times. It was the 40s and 50s, and my mom had come from a broken relationship, and she was raising me on her own until she found the right man again. And sometimes, you know, between my brother and I, we would misbehave pretty well. And you know, we think, oh, Mom will never forgive us, or we've been bad. And it wasn't that we were bad, it was sometimes what we did wasn't so good.
Yeah.
But you know, Mom always hugged us after and said she's sorry that they had to discipline us, but they still loved us. And I think that's one of the most important things that I learned to pass on to you and to your brother, is that, you know, even when the times are really, really bad, you still have that love in your heart for that child, you know, so, yeah.
But it's not just with your own children, because I've seen you, and I've learned that I know that I'm very open-hearted and loving to most everybody in my life, and that came from you.
Yes.
And it came from Dad. I got to give Dad some credit, because even though you guys divorced many years ago, I was lucky enough that I grew up in a household where we were loved openly. We were always hugged. We were always told that we were loved, and you showed it to my friends as they came in. So, yeah.
I think as a whole, I just love people to begin with, you know, and you want to gain, if you will, or share one or the other with everybody you meet, the positives. And I think that's an important thing, you know. We all have friends that sort of get under our skin, you know, or you brought home friends that maybe like, oh, really?
Yeah.
But you know, in the long run of it all, when you set aside those little flaws, which we all have, you know, we're all human, and it's okay, and you love the good things about the people, and you try to see the best in the people, you know, even though sometimes it can hurt you, because you put your heart out there too much to try, maybe. But in the end, you're the better for it.
See why I had to bring her on? The second thing I want to ask about is being a mom. I know hindsight is always 20/20, and as I've aged, I think back and think, oh, you know, there's things I would have done differently if I got to do it over again. But I want to ask you what you think were a couple of the things that you did really well as a mother, because you've seen the way, you know, Paul and I guess, have grown and developed.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one thing is we give you a good moral standing, hopefully, you know, your father and I. You know, even though we had our flaws and failures, I think, you know, we believe in doing right, and I think that's very important. We taught you to have a conscience, that, you know, before you leap, look and decide, is this the right move for you?
Particularly, I guess, so most of my audience are women
Mhm.
that maybe have young daughters, and you know, we want our young women to feel really empowered growing up, right? So
Yeah.
what would be something that you remember?
I remember with you one day, you were about 16, I believe, between 16 and 17. And we thought everything was going really well for you in your life, and we were so happy. And, you know, you were what we call good girl, you know, and we didn't have any worries per se, but, you know, nature being nature and you being that age. And I remember coming up to the bathroom in our house in Beaverton, and you were caught in the corner on your knees curled up and you were crying. And I was just dumbfounded. I thought, what is upsetting Vicky so much that she's hiding from us and crying? And my heart just tore apart when I seen it. And yeah, you'll get me crying now. And I still remember that day, how hurtful it was in my heart to see you hurting. And I asked you, you know, what's wrong? What can we do, you know, for you? And you had a couple issues. One was a fellow you were seeing at the time, and you felt he was just overwhelming your relationship, and it was a negative response. He was very depressed a lot, and he was possibly pressuring you for things you didn't want to do. And, you know, you and I just had a mother and daughter open talk, like, call a spade a spade. Don't fool around the bush with your daughters or your sons, you know. Say what it is and tell them. You have a right not to do what you feel you're being pressured into do, whether it's, you know, education, job, a sexual relationship, whatever it is. You have the right. It's your body and it's your mind, and you need to feel good about yourself. And the second, and it was more major actually, was because you thought your father and I would want you to go to university and get a good education and be a professional, and you know, we leaned that way, hoping that both you and your brother would do that. But you wanted from day one to be a hairdresser. And you thought we would be embarrassed because you picked a laborious job. And you know what? Unless you have communication with your daughters and your sons, you'll never find this out. And sometimes you're leading them away from what they really want to do. And we spoke openly, and I told you, you know, your dad and I loved you so deeply, and we wanted you to be happy. That was the big thing in life. You know, yes, everybody needs to make money, and yes, if you're an executive, you'd make more money than a hairdresser. But you know what? If you're at a job you don't like, what's the sense in life? So I think you remember that.
I do, and every time my mom brings that story up, I get teary-eyed, so
Yeah.
that's okay, because this is me. Okay, one more thing before I totally have no mascara on my face anymore. If you could go back and tell your younger self one piece of advice, or leave them with something that you've learned in the last 70 years, what would it be? One thing.
One thing. That's almost
That's
an
it, one thing.
Yeah, that's almost an impossibility. I think the main thing for me is be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. Yeah. Because when you fake out yourself and everybody else, you know, they know it, you know it, and you're not the person you should be.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Mom. I love you.
Love you.
Happy birthday. And thank you for watching this entire video, because I know it's a bit longer, but it was definitely, I think, well worth it. And if you want to get in touch with me, head on over to beautifulyoubyvictoria.com, and I'll see you there. Thanks, guys.